Hello, this is Pat O'Connor, and the topic for this video is the proven process to appeal your property taxes and minimize your property taxes over time. This is a 6-step process. It includes filing an appeal, requesting the appraisal district's hearing evidence package, preparing for the hearing, the informal hearing, the appraisal review board hearing if necessary, and repeat annually. So let's start with filing an appeal. The property tax protest deadline in Texas is May 15th. File an appeal each and every year, whether the value stays the same, goes up, or goes down. Many property owners don't really understand the arbitrary nature of the process, and they think that unless the value goes up, they shouldn't appeal. But that's really not the case, I promise you. You should appeal each year, and we'll describe why later. So file an appeal by May 15th and protest on both market value and unequal appraisal. These are both measures that allow you to reduce your property tax assessment and thus your property taxes. But if you just file an appeal on market value and then you realize that you really want to focus on unequal appraisal because your taxable value is higher than the taxable value of your neighbors, and you show up at the hearing and say, well, my market value is okay, but I've got a lot of information on unequal appraisal. I go, well, sorry, you didn't check the box on unequal appraisal. We can't consider it. It's sort of ridiculous, but it's just the way it is. So protest both market value and unequal appraisal. You can protest online. In many cases, the easiest way to protest is with old-fashioned snail mail. Fill out the form and check both the box for unequal appraisal and the box for market value. Then generate a note requesting the hearing evidence package. The property tax filing process should usually include a request for the hearing evidence package. So prepare the protest, and if you protest online, then send a short note to the appraisal district asking for the hearing evidence package. And the note can be quite simple. It can just say, please send me the hearing evidence package for the current tax year for this property, and please send it to me by first-class mail. If you prefer, many appraisal districts have the information online if it's requested. On the other hand, you can just request that they send it to you by first-class mail. There's no cost for this, and it's helpful information for many reasons. In addition to the tax appeal process, it helps you to stay informed about the value of your home, which is likely your most valuable asset. So file the appeal on both market value and unequal appraisal by May 15th, and then when you're appealing or shortly afterwards, request the hearing evidence package. The hearing evidence package has a lot of valuable information, and in most cases, it will have enough information to support a reduction in your property taxes. That's pretty cool when you think about it. The appraisal district sends you the hearing evidence package, and then you get to use the appraisal district's information against them. So you file a protest, request the hearing evidence package, and most of the time, the hearing evidence package will have the information you need to get a reduction in your property tax value, and thus your property taxes. So the next step is to prepare for the hearing. The hearing evidence package will typically have the description of your property, comparable sales data, both for improved properties and in some cases for land, and then an unequal appraisal analysis. And these are the 3 areas we want to cover in preparing for the hearing. So for the hearing, you want to look at the property condition or property description, market value, and unequal appraisal. Let's start with the property description. We're going to talk about 4 components: the grade of construction, the condition of the property, the level of remodeling or the effect of year built, and the size of the property. The appraisal district does not use comparable sales to value your home. They use comparable sales at the hearing, but to value your home, they use what's called the cost approach. And in the cost approach to value, they estimate the cost per square foot to build the property, And then they calculate the total cost to build a home. Then they deduct depreciation, which is based on the age and condition of the property. And then they add the land value. So it's the cost new to build minus depreciation and plus the land. The cost new depends on the grade of construction. The amount of depreciation depends on the effective age and the condition. So if the appraisal district has incorrect information on grade, effective age, or condition, they're going to have an incorrect value. So look first at the grade. The grade is a critical factor, and correcting the grade will impact and affect your property taxes for years into the future. If the appraisal district has overstated the grade of construction or the quality of construction for your home, it will artificially increase your property taxes. Compare the grade of construction for your home to other homes in the area. In most cases, you'll be in a homogeneous subdivision, and the properties will be of a similar quality of building. And the grade should be similar as well. If there is a meaningful difference between the grade of your property and the grades of other properties in the areas, and if your grade is higher, you need to look at it very carefully because that will have a large impact on the value of your property. The second issue is the condition of the property. If the appraisal district has described the condition of your property as excellent, but really it's in average condition, this will also have a meaningful impact on the value of your property. In addition to looking at the condition for your property, it's often helpful to look at the condition that the appraisal district has provided for other properties in the neighborhood. If the properties are in similar condition, but your property has an incorrect condition that's overstated, you'll tend to be overvalued, which comes into play in the unequal appraisal. The third factor is the level of remodeling or the effective year built of the property. Some appraisal districts describe this with a level of remodeling. And there are typically 4 levels of remodeling: no remodeling, partial remodel, an extensive remodel, or total remodel. Total remodel is usually considered tearing out the sheetrock and rebuilding the home from the studs out, often replacing plumbing and electrical. The other way to look at level of remodel is the effective year built. So let's assume your house was built in 1980, and in 2020, you did a major remodeling of the house. You updated the kitchen, you upgraded the bathrooms, you replaced the flooring. You did everything you could to make the house a nicer place to live. If the appraisal district's aware of this remodeling, they will change the effective year built in many cases from 1980 to perhaps 2000. Why 2000? Good question. The effective year built is somewhat arbitrary. They haven't seen the inside of your house probably. They're just looking at information on the building permit and trying to come up with an effective year built. If you can help explain that instead of 2000, you think an effective year built is 1995, that will not only reduce your property taxes this year, it will reduce them into future years. And the last component we're going to discuss is the size of your home. It seems so simple, but how in the world do 2,200 appraisers at the Texas appraisal districts keep accurate track of 20 million properties? Think about it. There's only 2,200 appraisers at the appraisal districts throughout Texas, yet they keep track of the condition, size, age, etc. of 20 million properties. How can they do it accurately? Well, obviously they can't. They do their best. It's a tough job, and I'm not trying to beat them up about it, but the issue is that in many cases, the size is incorrect. This is particularly true if you have an atrium in your house. It is highly likely if there's an atrium in your house that the appraisal district has overstated the building size. If you have an appraisal handy from the purchase or refinance of your home, look at the measurement that the appraiser did and compare it to the building size the appraisal district has. If the appraiser's size is lower, then very likely the size the appraisal district has should be lower. The size for a home is based on outside measurements for air-conditioned area. So you measure a home based on the outside dimensions, but do not include porches and garages, which are not air-conditioned. So check the size and make sure that's reasonable. The next step in the hearing preparation process is market value or comparable sales. Part of the appraisal district's hearing evidence package will typically be comparable sales for your neighborhood. First of all, the appraisal district will be reluctant to look at sales outside of the neighborhood. They're going to want to focus on comparable sales in, quote, the neighborhood. It's sort of ridiculous and it's frustrating to a lot of people that they're so rigid about their description of a neighborhood. But the reality is they probably won't consider sales outside of what they consider the neighborhood unless there are very few or no sales in the neighborhood, or unless your property is quite dissimilar to the properties in the neighborhood. So focus on sales in the neighborhood, and the date of sale you should focus on is January 1st of the prior year to March of the current year. So if you're appealing 2020 property taxes, look for sales from January 1st, 2019 to March of 2020. The current value has an effective date of January of the current year. And for the most part, the practice is to look at sales from the prior year and the early part of the current year. Next, look for sales that are similar to your property. In addition to being similar or in the neighborhood, look for homes that are similar in age, size, and condition. And try to find 2 or 3 sales that sold for less per square foot than your home is valued at. So if your home is valued at $100 a square foot, and you can find 2 or 3 sales that are at $80 to $90 a square foot, you probably have enough to reduce your property taxes. 2 or 3 helpful sales will probably help you to prevail in an informal hearing or an appraisal review board hearing. So comparable sales is the second step in the process. The third step is unequal appraisal. And here you're going to want to go to the appraisal district's website and research the taxable value or the assessed value set by the appraisal district for other homes in the neighborhood. The ideal comps are on the same street, if you can find them, ones that are helpful, but if not, keep them in the neighborhood. And again, look for properties that are similar in age, size, condition, and of course, location. If you can find 5 to 10 assessment comparables or the taxable properties where the taxable value is lower than the taxable value of your home, that's probably enough evidence to prevail in the hearing and negotiate a lower value. So let's again use the example that you're valued at $100 a square foot. And let's say you found 10 assessment comparables that are valued from $80 to $90 a square foot. We then have an excellent case on unequal appraisal that your home should be valued at $80 to $90 a square foot. So the 3 steps in preparing for the hearing are: number 1, reviewing the appraisal district's description of your property to see if it's accurate; 2, market value based on comparable sales; and 3, unequal appraisal based on researching comps on the appraisal district's website. The next 2 steps are the hearing process itself. There can be 2 steps in the hearing process: the informal hearing and the formal hearing or the appraisal review board hearing. If you successfully negotiate a value at the informal hearing, that completes the process and you don't have to go to the appraisal review board hearing. If you're not able to negotiate a reasonable value at the informal hearing, you should continue on with the appraisal review board hearing. So what is the informal hearing? The informal hearing will typically be a meeting with an appraiser from the appraisal district that will last for 15 to 20 minutes in a cubicle. And you'll be sitting across a desk from the appraiser, and this is your chance to smile and explain why the taxable value, the assessed value for your home, should be reduced based on the evidence you have either on property description, comparable sales, or assessment comparable / unequal appraisal. This is not the time to express your distaste for the level of property taxes or the local government. The appraiser can't change the level of property taxes or the local government, but the appraiser can change the taxable value for your property. So smile, work cooperatively with the appraiser, and try to negotiate a settlement that's acceptable to you during the informal hearing. The informal hearing is the best opportunity to reduce the taxable value, and most tax appeals are settled in the informal hearing. If for whatever reason you are not able to get an acceptable reduction in the informal hearing, the next step is the Appraisal Review Board hearing, sometimes called the ARB or the formal hearing. While it's called a formal hearing, it's not really a formal hearing. You're meeting with 3 members of the public and an appraiser from the appraisal district. So the Appraisal Review Board hearing will typically be in a small room. The people present will be the 3 members of the Appraisal Review Board, the appraiser, and you. The Appraisal Review Board members are members of the public in the same county, and they are supposed to be impartial and independent, but they're paid by the appraisal district. So, there's a little bit of an issue with complete independence. The hearing process at the Appraisal Review Board goes as follows. They swear in everyone at the hearing that they'll do what they're supposed to do and tell the truth, property description, property owner presentation of evidence, appraiser presentation of evidence, last word from the property owner, and then the ARB members will discuss a final value. So the first step is they will ask you to take a simple oath, just saying that you'll tell the truth and the information you're going to provide is accurate. And of course, it would be anyway. And the appraiser takes the same oath. And the oath for the ARB members is that they'll follow law for conducting hearings. After the oath, the next step is the property description. The Appraisal Review Board member or Appraisal Review Board member will typically describe your property in a summary format and then ask if that's correct. In other cases, the appraiser will read the description of the property. After the description of the property is presented, if it's accurate, just acknowledge that it's accurate. If it's not accurate, this is the point to indicate there's a problem with the description of the property on factors such as grade, size, condition, or level of remodel. And after the property description, the next step is the property owner's presentation. And once again, this is a time to smile and be friendly. Present information to the Appraisal Review Board to try to convince them that your value should be reduced either based on the property information, the comparable sales, or unequal appraisal. Again, it is not the time to complain about property taxes being too high or the quality of local government. The Appraisal Review Board can't change property tax rates or the local government, but they can reduce your property tax assessment. So take the friendly approach and try to present a reasonable explanation of why your property tax assessment should be reduced. After you have finished, the appraiser will present information on their perspective, and they may suggest that the value that was set initially is okay. They may agree with your value, or they may suggest a value in between. The appraiser will typically present comparable sales and an unequal appraisal analysis. After the appraiser has completed his presentation, the Appraisal Review Board will usually ask if you have any final comments. And here they're not looking for you to repeat everything you've said previously. They're looking either for a brief summary or a comment on the appraiser's evidence and why you think your evidence is better than the appraiser's evidence. After your closing comment, they will close evidence and the ARB will discuss the evidence and make a final value decision. The decision they make isn't negotiable, but they will make the decision while you're sitting there and present it to you. When they presented the value decision, that will complete the appraisal review board hearing. So the hearing process includes the informal hearing. In most cases, that completes the hearing process. In perhaps a quarter of the cases, there's also an appraisal review board hearing. So those two steps, the informal hearing and the appraisal review board hearing. And that completes the hearing process. And the last step is repeat each year. It doesn't matter if the value stays the same, goes up, or is reduced by the appraisal district. Appeal each year, and I'm going to give you some reasons why. First of all, this year's value depends partially on last year's value. So if your value last year was noticed at $300,000 and you didn't protest, the appraisal district thinks that, well, you accepted it, right? So why would they ever go below $300,000 for this year? On the other hand, if last year's value was noticed at $300,000 and you successfully negotiated it down to $285,000, that will be the starting point to negotiate the taxable value for this year. So the final value for the prior year is a factor in negotiating this year's taxable value. A second factor is the arbitrary nature of the hearing process. It involves people. Some appraisers are easier to work with. They try to find common ground with the property owner. Other appraisers are more difficult to work with. They're concerned that they may get in trouble if they make a change. And it's similar with the appraisal review board panels. Some panels are quite receptive to the property owner's perspective and readily willing to make an adjustment if evidence supports it. Other panels are reluctant to make an adjustment, and they're inclined to agree with whatever the appraisal district suggests. But you don't know which type of appraiser and which type of appraisal review board panel you're going to work with until you get to the hearing. You can't know this information before you file the protest. A third factor is the hearing evidence package. The hearing evidence package is great in some years. It's not so good in some years. But you don't know again. You have to file a protest to obtain the hearing evidence package. It's the law. So file the protest, obtain the hearing evidence package, and then go through the appeal process. But you can't find out in advance whether the hearing evidence package will be helpful or not. So appeal each year, whether the value is the same, whether it goes down, or whether it goes up. So those are the 6 steps in the tax appeal process. File an appeal on both market value and unequal appraisal, request the appraisal district's hearing evidence package, prepare for the hearing, the informal hearing, the appraisal review board hearing if necessary, and then repeat on an annual basis. This is the proven method to minimize your property taxes. It's guaranteed to work. Thanks for watching.